Cliff High developed a software program over 20 years ago that scanned the entire internet and analyzed thematic patterns and language that people were using all over the world to predict the future. Cliff High believed in our individual subconscious intuition, but he also believed in our interconnected consciousness that we all draw from whether we're aware of it or not. So using a technique that he called predictive linguistics, he wrote a program that was able to analyze all the keywords and phrases and thematic patterns and assigned them an emotional value. It then uses a formula to gauge our emotional tensions and write a report on events that will happen in the future. Now, these predictions all came with a precondition that Cliff called temporal markers. And that's kind of like a precursor event, like a trigger event that has to happen before the prediction will come true. So the prediction will not happen until or unless the temporal marker or the trigger event happens first. So what did this program predict? Way back in 2009, this is crazy, honestly. The software program reported of a battle in our skies that got chaotic and out of hand between military jets and UFOs, and also, interestingly, UFOs against other UFOs. And this would mark the beginning of an era where non-human intelligence became a part of our everyday reality. And this was all to take place roughly 39 days after the trigger event happened, so after that temporal marker event. And that temporal marker event was Donald Trump being interviewed by Joe Rogan, which just happened the other day and is already the biggest podcast of all time. But let me explain why this is so wild. In 2009, when this prediction was made, Joe Rogan was far from being a household name like he is today. His podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, had its very first episode in December 2009. And back then, it was literally just Joe and a couple of his mates on their webcams in their lounge room. He had hosted Fear Factor, and he was the commentator for the UFC back then, but even then, the UFC was way smaller than what it is today. And Donald Trump being the president was not even in the conversation. In 2009, he was just a real estate mogul and the guy from The Apprentice. This kind of prediction back then was so far out of left field that it was hardly given any further thought by Cliff himself. And now, in 2024, President Donald Trump has just been on the Joe Rogan Experience, the biggest podcast in the world. And at the same time, we have so many military whistleblowers, Harvard lawyers, Stanford scientists, all coming out and saying UFOs and non-human intelligence are very real, and that we, the public, need to be made aware of this before it's potentially catastrophically forced upon us.
The Earth isn't flat. There's no fucking way the Earth is flat. This is a lot harder than I expected, proving that the Earth is round. It's fucking weird. It is way, way, way harder. Dude, I'm telling you, it's fucked up. I know the Earth is round. This is a fucking nightmare. This is literally a nightmare trying to fucking disprove this thing. The Earth is not flat. That's fucking psychotic. I really, really don't want to believe the Earth is flat, guys. Fuck! This is so fucking depressing. I can't be a flat Earth person. This can't be a reality. Some people are terrified of the flat Earth shit. I'm not. I think it's fascinating. I've enlisted the help of literally some of the best scientists in the world, and they suffer the same hubris that I see a lot of people suffer from. Again, I still believe the Earth is a sphere. I'm just having a very hard time proving it. Flat Earth sounds completely insane still to me. I can't wrap my brain around it, but I'm starting to think that I may be at the edge of my own ability to shatter what I think. I'm open to it. That's all I'm saying. I don't know. The Earth may be flat. I'm dead serious. I can't imagine the Earth being flat. I think that's insane. That to me is so unnatural. What I'm pretty sure it isn't is a ball of magma and water spinning 1,000 miles an hour through a vacuum. God damn it. The Earth is clearly not a fucking spinning ball. How the fuck are we supposed to handle all of this? I get it. I'm having a hard time with all of it. Oh, fucking stupid. The Earth is flat. It's all a lie. And of course I want to believe it. I used to want to be an astronaut. I'm not a quote unquote flat earther. I just find it very interesting. I just think that's very interesting. I think the fuck is flat. I don't give a fuck. I'm not buying a lot of this shit anymore, guys. I don't know if it's flat or not, but it's not moving. I don't think it's spinning for shit. Every instinct of my body thinks it's a globe spinning through space. Because I've been told that my whole life so many times, I revert to it no matter how I think. That being said, none of that makes any sense. All right. There's no evidence that the Earth is a globe. None. It's not even that it's like people being angry. It's people desperately hanging on to a lie. It's so sad. The despair that people feel because of these lies is unbelievable. And the crazy thing is how many people are so beaten down that they're like, don't ask that question. Isn't a spinning ball. It's provably not a spinning ball. When someone first proposed flat Earth to me, I said that they were insane. I get it. Trauma is real, man. The trauma from public school and media and shame and all this stuff is very real. You saw some of those awakening videos with me where I was begging to not be a flat Earth person.
Have the same story that we all have. All of us that have become flat earthers had the exact same thing, except you did it live on the air. That's how you become a flat earther. You try to debunk it or prove the ball. You have to be willing to admit you were wrong. And that's what I like. That's what you did. You didn't want to be wrong. You wanted to find evidence, and when you couldn't, you realized you were wrong.
I hate being wrong. I used to call flat earthers retards, like a ton. Like I would aggressively. The average person thinks they're standing on a spinning ball. Right now, 2022. They think they're standing on a ball that's spinning 1,000 miles an hour in infinite blackness. They're literally like, I'm standing on a spinning ball right now. Zero evidence you're on a spinning ball. Look around, guys. Does that look like you're on a ball going 1,000 miles an hour? It's so fucking stupid. Most globe people have never thought about anything. They're just like, you're so very stupid. Everyone's, prove you're on a flat plane. Okay, there it is. It's right there.
That's the flat, not moving plane.
How about you prove you're on a spinning? So is ignorance bliss? No. Sometimes I wish I could go back. I don't. I mean, I've enjoyed my journey. There are no former flat earthers. None. Not one. Nobody's ever seen what the actual shape of the earth is and then been like, you know what? Neil deGrasse Tyson really does give me a good argument because it's literally ridiculous. I've heard all your dumb arguments. We were raised with this bullshit. Elementary school, middle school, high school, college, all of it. It's bullshit. It's retarded. Like, they act like we're the crazy people. You sound so fucking stupid when you talk flat earth. There's literally no curve. It doesn't exist. It's not real. And that terrifies a certain type of human being. And so then they'll just latch on to anything that allows them to stay in the lie. It is a lie. You have to be fucking retarded at this point to not see that no one played golf on the moon and broke the technology and can't return. Those are the childlike lies of a psychopath. Okay? That's not even close to a sophisticated lie. Not even close. All such a low-level psychopathy. It's such low-level lies. Think an abstract thought without commitment. You just think. Some people can't do that. Some people are incapable of abstract thought. Can't you just think? Can't you just ponder? They can't. I've looked myself into the nature of this reality, and it is not a spinning ball. And it's the reaction shows the lie. Ha 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 ha. They're so stupid. Ha 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 ha. They're so crazy. You make yourself look really dumb when you say that. I'm like, of all the things that makes you react with such vitriol, ego, intensity, it shouldn't matter at all to people. Oh, it just makes you sound totally insane. No, that reaction showed me that there's truth to it. What's seen as crazy is just looking around and saying, okay, my eyes tell me this is not a curve. Why wouldn't someone trust their eyes and their ears and their hands and their nose and their mouth and their logic? I think that there's things in the sky moving over us. Yes. Yes, I do. They have drones, balloons, huge network up there. Do I think they're going 15,000 miles an hour so they fall with the gravity of the Earth, and they stay there for decades without needing any maintenance or running into space junk or any particles and destroying them, and their fragile tech just keeps working and broadcasting things. No, of course not. That's retarded.
Where are we going? And the answer to all of these questions is what we're all searching for at the moment, because we've been led so far from our true path. And the biggest danger in trying to find a way out of this mess is in adopting belief systems along the way and closing yourself off to the myriad of possibilities that are still out there.
People hear the saying, everything that you were taught was a lie. And we hear it and we just like, we don't even care. We care about, the basketball game, going to the club, all of these distractions. You know what I'm saying? Got to go to work, got to do all of this shit. And we don't really think about it. When they say everything that we were taught was a lie, that's facts. Everything that we were taught was really a lie. There's a purpose in why they told you that you live on a spinning ball that was randomly created because some dust exploded in space. There's a reason they told you that. All of the books that the ancient people that were here before us, they took all of those books and they hid them all because why? They would tell us the truth. And it will make us where we can't be enslaved how we are. We're the modern-day slaves, going to work, paying taxes. That's all everybody does. That's all everybody focuses on. Go to work and pay your taxes.
Because in America, the government works for you.
Bullshit! Listen up, kids. Everything they teach you in school is a lie. You want the truth? The world is controlled by shadowy elites and shape-shifting lizard people. Am I the only one who cares that the president is a robot? Wake up, sheeple! The evidence is right here.
Common sign of a frenemy, of somebody who's befriending you out of envy, is they're in a rush to be your friend. Normally, we like to take it a little bit slow. We just don't let anybody into our lives. We like to vet them a little bit beforehand. We don't trust everybody. But the person who feels envy is like, I love you, you're fantastic, I want to be your friend, we gotta hang out, let's go out for dinner the next night, etc. They're in a hurry. That's a sign that something else is going on, because that's not natural. The fake smile, if you can just master the ability to detect the fake smile, it will go wonders for you, particularly in romantic relationships. Someone whose face lights up, a real smile, lights your whole face up. It just doesn't light your mouth. These parts of your face go up, your eyes get alive. It means that someone genuinely likes you. They're genuinely interested in you. They're genuinely laughing or connecting to you. And if you can see that, it'll help you get away from those toxic people that are continually faking interest in you.
With the education we've been given, the history we've been given, and quite literally everything we've been told by this system is a lie. All of it. And the depths of this lie is quite literally so profound and so all-pervasive that it's almost impossible for most people to even see, because it is quite literally so big that it covers virtually every single aspect of our lives. Virtually everything we've been told about everything is backwards. Now, I'm going to cover some topics on the show today that will probably seem very esoteric and right out of left field for people, but it's just stuff that needs to be addressed. It's just stuff that I want to talk about. It's important at the beginning of the discussion to lay the groundwork that is needed to even begin thinking about these things, and that groundwork is the clear understanding that everything we've been told is a lie. All of it. Our history, who we are, where we come from, our religions, our food, our medicine, what this world is, quite literally everything is a lie. And that's why it's so difficult to ever really discover the truth and to wake up the people around us, because all of the information that we're even researching, most of it, has been falsified. That is why people are constantly locked into different belief systems, why they continue to argue with each other, and why they continue to perpetuate their divide and conquer programming. Because in everything that they're looking at and all the information that they've got, they never even factor in the reality that In any investigation into the past, which is invariably where we look to find out what happened and what brought us to this point, most of the information that we glean from old books about historical figures has been doctored, rearranged and rewritten, and in some cases it's actually even doubtful that many of these people even actually existed. In many cases, works were attributed to people who didn't do those works. In many cases, discoveries were most likely attributed to people who never made those discoveries. Many events were simply fabricated, and many people simply did not do what we were told they did. And as I said, in the case of many of them, it's doubtful that they ever even existed. Or if they did exist, it very often was not when we were told they existed, and very often the information they presented was doctored to fit the current version of reality. Though very often, no doubt, there were little gems left in there just to keep the people guessing and just to keep the people fighting and arguing and squabbling and looking for the deeper meaning without ever really stepping back and looking at reality as a whole. The thing is, people really do need to understand clearly that this is our starting point. This is what we've got to work with. The fact that everything we've been told is a lie, and we cannot rely on any of the information that we get from any books anywhere. Certainly not any books that have been put on the scene since the invention of the printing press anyway. Perhaps we can find some truth in old books such as the Vedas, perhaps the Nagamani library, if there was a real interpretation of that actually existed, which there doesn't appear to be at the moment. Perhaps there are ancient scrolls that exist that do contain the truth, and perhaps the real truth is still hidden somewhere. But most certainly, apart from books such as the Vedas, we most certainly do not have access to anything even closely resembling the truth in what we are delivered from modern mainstream academic, scientific or educational sources. And that is simply the stark reality of the matter. You know, the true reality is, and has always been, that all we can really rely on 100% is that which we go out and experience in the world for ourselves. And that's a very difficult thing for people to come to terms with. However, if one goes out and travels the world and really looks at things open-mindedly, the evidence that everything we've been told is a lie is everywhere, and it speaks for itself. And if you really look at it, one of our biggest problems, one of the things that holds us back more than anything else, comes with our blind acceptance of things. Our blind acceptance of what we're given as facts by the academic system, things that we're told, and we just take as a matter of course and just take them on as part of our everyday life without ever really investigating them. And we do this on so many levels, it's actually quite profound when you step back and look at it. Everyday things we just take as a given and don't ask questions about. And then many people tend to do this when they're researching as well. They just blindly accept what they find online. They find something that reinforces their belief system and they blindly accept it and they move on from that point. Because that's what belief systems do. As soon as you adopt a belief system, you look for stuff that reinforces that belief system and you disregard everything else. You just close yourself off to all possibilities. That's what is so dangerous about adopting belief systems halfway through this journey of life. Because it's a wondrous world, folks, and it's an amazing world, and it is nothing like what we're told it is, and we are nothing like what we are told we are. The question is, what are we? And what is this world? Where do we come from? How do we get here? And where are we going? And the answer to all of these questions is a moment, because we've been led so far from our true path.
Weirdest and most unbelievable creatures to ever wash up on the beach, Part 2. First, in 2016, a group of fishermen stumbled across this huge 176-pound smelly thing that looked a lot like a rock. At first, they didn't think much of it, but shockingly, it was actually whale vomit, which is used to formulate luxury fragrances. Which means whale vomit can be sold at very high prices. This 176-pound chunk of the stuff was valued at $3 million. Next, in July of 2018, this creature that looks like a demon was found washed up on the shores of Montauk, New York. Supposedly, the creepy-looking carcass for some reason wasn't available for autopsy as it was carted away by an unknown group of people. Many have speculated it might be the mutant product of experimentation at the controversial Plum Island Animal Disease Center, which is near where the creature was found.
Creepy facts I bet you didn't know, part 1. Doctors originally invented the chainsaw for childbirth. 4,400 unidentified bodies are found every single year. There's over 18.6 million vacant homes in the United States. In 1800, dentures were made from the teeth of the deceased. The Devil's Bible is a real thing, it's called the Codex Gigas.
They offered you $3,000 to let your child try out a new playground. They tell you you're not allowed to tell anybody about this beforehand and you can't disclose the location of where I'm taking you. But they give you $1,000 up front and you get the other $2,000 after your child starts playing on the playground. You see, this is a trap because the playground is designed in order to hurt as many young ones as possible, or even to unalive them. This is the story of Aaron Beauregard's playground. The story follows a bunch of lower income families that are tricked into doing this, and it's about all these young ones trying to survive the playground. It's obviously a horror novel, but I've heard a lot of people talking about it on TikTok recently and I decided to pick it up. I've seen almost everyone unanimously agree that they can't get past page 40. I'm gonna read the whole book, but I'll give you an update on here once I get to 40. So I'm on page 41 now. Would not recommend reading that while you're eating. I see why that page made some people stop reading, but not in the way that I thought it would be. I'm gonna finish the book though.
This is the true story of the nun. The Vatican has held the head of a possessed nun for over 300 years. In 1742, a nun named Josephine Rosenthal appeared pregnant. Josephine became frustrated when she claimed that she had not had relations with a man. As a result of this, tests were performed which determined that she was still a virgin, and it was determined that she was a divine case. Josephine lost her life when she gave birth to a baby girl named Maria Rosenthal. Maria became the object of ridicule by nuns and priests because she was a hermaphrodite, and people perceived her as a demonic being for having such a condition. In view of this, church leaders came up with a plan to take Maria's life at the same age as Jesus at 33 years old, to make her death seem divine. This plan reached Mary's ears, so she decided to take her own life. After that, the priests ordered her head to be removed and embalmed in a box with a cross. After her death, Maria began to give paranormal apparitions in the convent.
The shadow people. To speak to the shadow people, all you need to do is draw the symbol on a piece of paper. Now stand in a well-lit room where you can see your shadow on the floor in front of you. Now place the symbol directly on top of your shadow and say, "From the darkness I welcome you here," one time. You have now allowed the shadow entity into yourself. You can ask it any questions that you'd like. But be warned, the shadow people can make you incredibly lucky in life or completely ruin it. Are you brave enough to try this? Then heart this video and follow my account.
The platypus is probably the weirdest animal that exists on Earth. It's like a duck mixed with a beaver with an otter's feet. They're also a mammal that lays eggs. And they're venomous, which is also weird for a mammal. And the way their venom works is wild. It's found in their back legs. And basically they just kick you and drive their spurs into you, which injects the venom. And scientists pretty much know nothing about their venom. There's no cures to it. And get this, when they jump in water, their eyes and their ears shut down. So they're pretty much deaf and blind. But it's cool because they can connect to the electromagnetic field of any creature. So they can hunt creatures by detecting their electrical pulses. Call me crazy, but that's a superpower. They also have no teeth, so when they need to chew, they just throw rocks in their mouth to grind up their food. And I don't know where the food goes, because they also don't have a stomach. Oh, and they also don't have nipples, but they have milk. It just comes out of their armpits. Moral of the story, if you ever feel weird, like you're an oddball, just remember, the platypus exists. And as always...
Imagine spending 18 years in prison for something you never did. In 1995, Daniel Villegas was only 18 years old when he was wrongfully convicted of a double homicide. It all happened in 1993 when two teens were walking home from a party when a car came up behind them and shot them and killed both of them. Daniel was brought in for questioning and the detectives threatened to beat him and give him the death penalty if he refused to confess. Keep in mind that Daniel was only 16 years old at the time, so he was easily manipulated. He was also coerced to sign a confession that was prepared by the detectives. After he realized what he'd done, he tried to withdraw his confession, but at that point it was too late. Daniel was sentenced to life in prison until 2018. This is the moment his case was acquitted and he became a free man at the age of 38.
If the defendant will please stand. This is the moment that Villegas will find out if he'll go home with his family or be sent back to prison to serve his life sentence.
The state of Texas versus Daniel Villegas. Verdict form B. We, the jury, find the defendant Daniel Villegas not guilty of...
I'm Gonna Ruin Your Childhood, Part 1. The original Wizard of Oz movie is actually considered to be cursed because of all the horrific things that happened during filming. The main character, Dorothy, who was played by Judy Garland, was actually drugged and molested during filming. She was given adrenaline shots so that she could stay up more than 48 hours at a time. And there are reports that she was sexually assaulted by the Munchkin actors and studio executives. The actress who played the Wicked Witch got horrifically burned on set. During the scene where the witch escapes Munchkinland in a plume of smoke, the pyrotechnic team set off the explosion a little too early. It caused the witch's broom, hat, and makeup to catch on fire. The medics had to rub alcohol all over the burns to remove the makeup, which was extremely painful. And the snow that you see in the movie was actually a lethal chemical called asbesto, which causes cancer.
This is the worst thing that ever happened at a concert. In 2003, the band Great White was performing live when pyrotechnics went off as planned. But within moments, everything took a horrifying turn. Flames erupted as the foam on the stage and walls caught fire, spreading faster than anyone could react. While the band managed to escape through the back exits, hundreds of audience members were left in chaos, desperately trying to find their way out. Thick smoke quickly filled the venue and people scrambled toward the front entrance, creating a wall of bodies as they clambered over each other in a desperate bid to survive. In the video of the incident, you can see people screaming and getting crushed to death. The situation spiraled as people became trapped, some crushed under the weight of others. And survivors described the scenes of half-burned victims being pulled out from the flames. Outside in the snow, survivors tried to help by rubbing snow onto the burned. But the devastation was immense. By the end, 100 people had tragically lost their lives, and over 200 were injured in one of the most heartbreaking concert disasters in history.
This skull was found inside the wall of a house in Illinois, and it turns out that it belonged to a woman that passed away more than 150 years ago. In 1978, James Skinner was doing renovations on his home when he came across a skull behind the wall. He called police and they took the skull to further investigate. They knew it belonged to a woman, but could not identify who this person was until recently. In February 2024, with the help of genetic genealogy, they finally determined that the skull belonged to a 17-year-old woman named Esther Granger. Esther was born on October 6, 1848 in Indiana, and at 16 she got married, then pregnant, but passed away from complications after giving birth to her daughter in 1866. She was buried in a grave in Illinois, and her daughter was named after her. Now you're probably wondering, how in the world did Esther's skull randomly appear inside this man's wall in a completely different state? Well, even though investigators are not 100% certain, their theory is that Esther was a victim of grave robbing. Grave robbing is when someone digs up a grave and takes the body of a deceased person to often sell them to medical schools for research purposes. This was pretty common in that era since it was very profitable and there was a high demand for research and education. After searching for family related to Esther, they found a man named Wayne, who's also a retired police officer in Portland, and he happens to be Esther's great-great-grandson.
Scary facts you didn't know were real, part 4. Most people agree that dying in your sleep is probably the best way to go. Peaceful, no signs of pain, no torture. Some say that an angel will pick you up and carry you to heaven while you're asleep. But sometimes angels can be clumsy and they can drop you. Remember the times you've been falling in your sleep and then you just randomly wake up? Makes sense to the whole hell on earth thing. Did you know that after sitting in a dimly lit room for 10 minutes, your brain will get so bored that it will literally start scaring you? Monsters in your reflection, your brain just completely playing tricks on you. This causes you to see imagery like Bloody Mary. That's why people do the Bloody Mary challenge in a completely pitch black room. And it doesn't happen right away because it's your brain literally playing tricks on you. Once upon a time, legends say that a little girl drowned in a canal, completely surrounded by an uninhabited island in Mexico. Today, some are even hung by trees. Now the area is nicknamed the Island of Dolls. That's f***ing scary. A little girl drowned there, people have killed there, and now it's called the Island of Dolls. I'll definitely pass on that one. Like and follow for more facts.
The Most Insane Rulers in History Part 2. Ivan IV, aka Ivan the Terrible, was Tsar of Russia between 1547 and 1548. Abuse as a child gave way to mental illness as an adult, and Ivan began torturing small animals. In 1544, at only 14, he seized control of Russia by feeding the head of the government to a pack of dogs. He then began massacring his own people and even killed his oldest son himself. He would apologize publicly for his cruel actions and then immediately turn around and do something even worse. Prince Sado lived in Korea between 1735 and 1762. After being sick with measles at 17, he began acting violently, abusing his servants and attacking women. He began murdering on a whim and even began stalking his own sister, which was the point that the king had enough. To prevent the prince from spreading any more terror, the king had him locked in a rice chest where he spent 8 days until he eventually died.
Foods that are now discontinued. The popular fruit yogurt snack Yogos disappeared from the market in 2010 following low demand, as well as Shark Bites in 2014 after a flavor change ruined the taste. Haribo sugar-free gummy bears were canned in 2015 after discovering the sweetener they used caused explosive diarrhea. Sometimes it's worth it though. Lime Skittles were canned in 2013 and Mars replaced the lime flavor with green apple, which actually caused a ton of protests. Taco Bell's Mexican pizza was taken off the menu in 2020 due to environmental concerns, though a wave of protests led to its revival in 2022. Sadly, the same can't be said about McDonald's snack wrap. After being a menu staple for many years, it was removed in 2016 with no warning. Oreo Cakesters were removed from the shelves in 2013 after relatively low demand. Easy Square took the market by storm with its Shrek collab in 2000, but it was pulled from the shelves in 2006 after creative differences. Many people refuse to believe this, but Spearmint and Cinnamon Tic Tacs were discontinued a few years ago as well. Other retired candies include Cream Savers in 2012, Butterfinger BBs in 2006, and Nestle Wonder Balls in 2004. And the Kudos Bar also had their run end in 2017. Oreo O's were gone for a long time, but apparently they're making a comeback. Same with Trix Yogurt, which was gone for about 6 years, but is rumored to be back on the shelves. And same with Dunkaroos, which were brought back in 2020 for a second run. And lastly, Cheetos Twisted Puffs left us in 2012, but at least we still have Spicy Cheetos.
Facts about our world that you probably didn't want to know. Part 45. Egyptian mummies would still be considered one of the rarest artifacts to find up to date, if medieval Europeans hadn't consumed a majority of the dead mummies' bodies, because they believed back then that if you consumed embalmed dead bodies, that it would actually heal your ailments. Please do not try this next one, but it is actually possible that you can convince somebody who has no history of mental illness in their family that they have a severe mental illness in roughly only a week. Please do not try to convince your brother that he has schizophrenia. That would not be a good idea, and it would not end up well. Throughout the filming of The Exorcist, you hear the possessed girl let out multiple demonic screams, but little did you know that those screams weren't humanly possible, and they were actually the sounds of squealing pigs who were being taken to a slaughterhouse. And last but certainly not least, it is said the people who practice the religion of Zoroastrianism actually leave dead bodies up in towers so that vultures can consume their remains. To us it may seem a little strange, but to them it's actually a sign of respect. But when I die, please don't put my body in a tower so I can be eaten by vultures. It's just not my thing.
Scariest mythical creatures from around the world, Part 2. The Jersey Devil. The Jersey Devil is a legendary creature found in Pine Brain, South Jersey. It is known to look exactly like a giant flying goat, having an extremely long neck, massive wings, extremely short legs, and of course a tail as sharp as a sword. Don't forget to like and follow for a Part 3.
Disturbing facts that will ruin your childhood, Part 2. This little girl here is Judith Barcy. She played Ducky in Land Before Time. She also played Anne Marie in All Dogs Go to Heaven. In 1988, she was shot in the head by her own father. He also did the same thing to her mother. After that, he doused the bodies in gasoline, then proceeded to set them on fire. He then shot himself in the head, and that's how the story ends. Her gravestone says yup yup yup, which is a quote from her character in the Land Before Time movies.
Mythical creatures caught on camera. Unicorn. Fairy. dragon. Mermaid. Phoenix.
You know that saying history's bound to repeat itself? Well, it looks like we have another Diddy, but he was the CEO of Abercrombie. I have not done a serious breakdown of people in a long time, so here you go. Now, when controversy strikes something like Diddy, you have to look at the people he surrounds himself with. Now, Diddy's label is Bad Boy Records. Who is the co-founder and mentor of Diddy? Clive Davis. I've talked about him on other people's podcasts before. But this guy is not the focal point of the video. I'm just drawing an illustration that what Diddy did probably came from this dude. The only reason I'm saying that is because this man mentored him into the industry. This man discovered him. But we came here to talk about Mike Jeffries. So what can we find on Mike Jeffries? Who does he surround himself with? Why did he get that facelift? And what can we learn? Now, he was recently arrested for human trafficking. Like I said, he was hosting Diddy parties in a way, just kind of his own thing. Maybe they're connected, I don't know. But what I do know is this guy right here did not have the career he should have had to be qualified for being CEO of Abercrombie. Just look at his Wikipedia. Why is this important? Now that's an easy one. A guy named Les Wexner hired Mr. Jeffries to reinvigorate the brand, bring Abercrombie, to the focal point of people's mind. Sexualized marketing. So now you're sitting here going, okay, who the hell is Les Wexner? Let me educate you. He was the primary client of He Who Shall Not Be Named, and he trusted this man so much he granted him power of attorney. It's kind of funny when you look at this stuff and realize how many coincidences there are in this world, and it's nothing but a coincidence. But isn't that funny? And when I speak on coincidences, this is what I mean. These people are just connected in ways that they shouldn't be, but there's nothing suspicious going on. They're just at the same place at the same time. And I mean, this world is full of coincidences. Look at someone like Ashton Kutcher. Ashton Kutcher is the epitome of in the same place at the same time. I mean, he's connected to this Diddy lawsuit in one way or another. You can see it in the court documents, but the guy's innocent. Isn't it also funny that he runs a company dedicated to child trafficking prevention? This guy is out there trying to make the world better. Or even looking at the people that have been surrounded in this controversy their whole lives and are just totally innocent. Like this poor guy, he's part of one of the wealthiest families in America and he's next to this girl. It's just timing, it's just a photo, nothing should be suspicious. The world is full of coincidences. And it's funny, the same guy's in this picture too. What a coincidence. And I mean, there's the girl again from that first picture. She seems like she's everywhere. Terrible timing for her. Let's look at some more. Oh my god, dude, she's even in pictures with Paris Hilton. Oh my god, and Eminem. What are the chances? I mean, even Britney Spears right there. She's just in photos. That's all there is to it. It's nothing weird. She's just in the pictures. And like I said with this one, it's just funny timing. I don't know who that random guy is that I've definitely never seen before anywhere, especially on the TV. She's just everywhere. That's how it is. Now, all I'm saying is some people are just prone to being on the camera, and when you have people in the spotlight like this for doing things wrong, maybe you should look at, I don't know, who else is in the camera with them. You can find some very funny coincidences. Nothing more, nothing less. It's just a coincidence. Here's another example of what I mean. It's just a coincidence. It's not like birds of a feather flock together. They're just together in a photo. Here's a perfect example. That's Drake, a man who's never done anything wrong and never been accused of doing anything wrong. In fact, his whole life, he's never done a single thing wrong. Here's him with a very questionable being. You can look in the comments. I'm not going to say it. Anyways, I just came here to say that the world is full of crazy coincidences, and none of it means anything at all, and you should definitely never think about these coincidences, because again, there's nothing to it at all. Anyways, I love you guys, and thank you.
Parts of Oklahoma City and the surrounding suburbs as we speak. And Kendall, you can see it here. We look at Oklahoma City, And this, unfortunately, a scene that we see a lot of times, especially in the spring. But here we are in our second severe weather season, and again, downed trees and power lines and homes being damaged as we speak.
That's right. And so to see the scenes like this, the devastation coming out of the Oklahoma City metro, it's heartbreaking. I've got a lot of friends and family that live in this area, and especially when you think about some of these towns. So Valley Brook, the I-240 area, this is where we saw the majority of the devastation. And so we know that search and rescue is underway. We also understand that as of this morning, again, 7 tornadoes have been confirmed, but there might be as many as 12 to 13. And so this is a quickly evolving situation. And as the first responders are getting out on the scene in some of these hard-hit communities, as well as the National Weather Service, their storm survey teams this morning will also be surveying the damage. We'll be bringing you the latest findings, but more and more images coming in. Here's another video coming in from Norman, Oklahoma. I actually saw this on X. I believe this was on OU, so University of Oklahoma's campus, right after the tornado ripped through the area.
Oh my goodness, and Norman, Oklahoma, of course, a place where the Storm Prediction Center is actually located, but you can see the winds screaming across that parking lot. Unfortunately, several reports of injuries in Valley Brook, Oklahoma. Again, you're looking at video from Norman where that rain was coming down fast and furious. We at one point had, in the city of Oklahoma City and Dell City, had at least 35,000 customers without power, and here's the reason why. Kendall, you can see not just the down trees, but the down power lines, the down power poles, knocking down traffic lights and antennas, the whole 9 yards. And this is leading to a really dark and kind of it's a dark morning this morning in parts of Oklahoma City.
Right, and you think about the fact that this occurred Saturday night during the early morning hours, probably caught a lot of folks off guard. This is Choctaw, Oklahoma. Power outages, like you mentioned, up to 64,000 now in Oklahoma, so those numbers just continue to increase, and that's pretty much going to be the name of the game as we watch as this cluster of storms races eastward. Would not be surprised if we see additional power outages right along the storm's path.
You know, we were just showing you video of Choctaw, Oklahoma, and the mayor, Chad Alcox, posting onto Facebook earlier just saying, please keep the city of Choctaw, Oklahoma, and the town of Harab in your thoughts and prayers. That we're seeing, of course, widespread, as Kendall mentioned, in parts of Oklahoma City.
So we have a real problem in our river that was the purest and cleanest water in the world is now completely toxic and disintegrating people's boots. Yeah, it's bad. We're in a very bad situation.
What's the river called?
The Tow River. The mud from the floods is disintegrating people's boots and their clothing. And my friend that lives down there says that when you wake up in the morning, it has a green haze over it. And they're having nosebleeds and coughing up blood. So anybody near these things is in serious trouble.
Where do all these toxins come from?
Well, so here in Mitchell County, we have the purest quartz in the world. So we have 2 mining companies that have been mining, and conveniently both of their processing locations are on the water. So I'm assuming there may have been some leakage, and then so I'm not sure what those chemicals could be, but I know it's toxic and it's disintegrating people's boots, and I'm assuming that's where it came from.
So, little known fact, 11 from Stranger Things was based solely off one person. Her name is Nina. She's a badass. I'll show a video that American researchers smuggled out of Russia of her just moving stuff with her mind. It's pretty unreal. Simulation. Of all these theories I go over on my channel, while they are interesting, the simulation theory lines up with all of them perfectly. But you see, you have to think about it like a spiritual simulation, not a computer simulation. Now, people like Elon Musk and Neil deGrasse Tyson say there's no way we're not in a simulation. A scientist, at least one, said there's a 50-50 shot we're in one, and there's good reason why they say this, but it's a little bit off than what I'm thinking. Because a lot of the things we do in our everyday life are literal glitches if you think about it in the right way. For example, let's go over alchemy, and not the alchemy from the medieval times where they were transmuting metals. I'm talking about transmuting emotions. Now, it's a very popular spiritual practice, and while it could just be visualization, you know, our brains do funny things, and I'm not saying anything for a fact, we could just be glitching the simulation out. Now, alchemy in a spiritual sense is the idea of changing emotions, transmuting them from negative to positive. And if you sit in a room and just think about your emotions as a color, they're black, turn them gold, turn them whatever you find positive, you will feel better. It's the same science behind you smiling and tricking your brain into releasing dopamine. If you're sad, start smiling uncontrollably. You're going to look like a serial killer. I promise you're not. And you're going to feel happier. Now, like I said, this could all be visualization, but it works, and that's what's important, and I'm going to put you on some game right now. Turn that into that. It is that simple. Now, when you dig into this stuff further, our very first religion ever talked about this kind of thing. Buddhism and Taoism talks about this kind of thing. Channelers talk about this kind of thing, which you can take that as you will, but it's weird that all these people that look within come out with the same answer. We're containers. And when I say we're containers, our bodies are containers. We can use multiple of them in our lifetime, not our physical lifetime, our spiritual. Time doesn't exist there. We can be in a lot of places at once, a lot of bodies at once, because time is not linear unless you're a human. Books that got taken out of the Bible talk about the same thing. The Hidden Book of John talks about this heavily. So imagine, we all came here to learn. That's just how we're going to look at it. I don't care if you believe this. The advice is still good. Now, we came here as spiritual beings, inhabited bodies, to learn about ourselves, to learn about others, to make ourselves better and more experienced with the things that we do. Now, if that's the case, that's a simulation. We are living in a simulation. It's like a game in a way. And if you know how to manipulate that game, that's how you can do it. That's where the idea for the Matrix came from. Well, actually, the Matrix got inspired by an anime that got inspired by this idea. It's all the same. And there's something to this. Everyone that looks within comes out with these same answers that line up perfectly with this. A lot of people say these theories you talk about conflict each other heavily. While a lot of them do, a lot of them don't. A lot of them work perfectly together like this. It's not a computer game, it's a spiritual game. And really think about this. All these channelers, all these people, all these Buddhist monks that meditate all the time and talk about this kind of thing, do you really think that everyone just had some kind of meeting and agreed on one narrative to go after? No, there's a reason when you look into yourself, this is what you come out with. Now, I won't lie to you. I myself believe in this for a few reasons. First one is it's what I choose to believe in, and that's what's important. You shouldn't knock people for what they choose to believe in. If you're Christian, I'd never knock you for being Christian. This is just my choice of what I want to believe. And I find it funny that all these people come back with the same answers. Our ancient history taught us about this. Channelers teach us about this. Anyone who looks within teaches us about this. There's probably something to it. And the second reason is something like the gateway process. While a lot of people call this debunked, it's not. You can look at files that got released like 6 months ago. They're from 2011. They're still studying the crap out of this. They don't understand why it works. More importantly, when you do something like the gateway process, you're going to come out talking about the same thing. See, the gateway process goes over the whole idea of the universal hologram. The CIA sent people into out-of-body experiences through a meditation. This meditation plays frequencies in each ear that cause a hemispheric synchronization in your brain and sends you out of your body. It doesn't happen to everyone, but it happens to most. The one thing people hear when they do this is that we live in a universal hologram. It's a hologram made of light that we kind of power with our own consciousness. What does that sound like? A simulation. Now we're going to talk about the flip side of things. People take psychedelics and come out saying the same thing. Most of them say the same thing. I met beings, they told me the secrets to life. I can control it with my mind. Kind of makes you wonder. Now, while this could all just be the power of visualization, like I said, it works and it makes people more confident, and that's really what's important. I mean, if you're going to learn about manifesting, find the info within yourself, because all you have to do is act like the person that you want to become, and the byproduct of that is you will become the person you want to become. You want to have $1 million? Act like you have $1 million, and you'll notice these opportunities start knocking at your door. The universe will not give you a door to open if you're not brave enough to knock. During the Crusades, the Knights Templar found this knowledge in a cave. They probably found psychedelics, took them, and all came out with the same info. That's how the Freemasons and Illuminati started. Now, the Illuminati is real, but it's not what you think. See, the Freemasons had their own thing going, the Bavarians wanted in, and the Freemasons would not let them do it, so they started their own thing called the Illuminati, and it meant the enlightened ones. It was a quest for the truth, a quest for knowledge, a quest for enlightenment. It's funny how all these people that search within have the same answer. Maybe like there's something to it. I don't know. Makes you think that maybe we're all connected in some way when you find these symbolisms and callbacks in all of our ancient cultures, and this stuff was protected knowledge. It looks like shapes. If you don't know what it is, watch some of my other videos. I'm not going to put my viewers through explaining this for the 90th time. That's forbidden knowledge in China. You had to study for years for a chance to learn about it. And it was like that across all these cultures for a reason. What this symbolizes is that you can control your surroundings around you. This is what birthed occult knowledge, and occult knowledge is heavily slept on. I mean, it might be kind of weird in some ways, but it all has the same message. You can control this with your mind. You can control yourself, and in doing so, you will bring what you want straight to your doorstep. The first recorded human history is the Sumerians. These guys knew a lot of stuff they shouldn't have known, like planets and where they were, how big they were, how far away they were. You can't see Pluto with your naked eye, but they knew about it. And one of their goddesses that they worshipped taught you how to control this simulation around you, how to control the universe to your bidding and make your life easier via just understanding how this works. It's pretty cut and dry. All I'm saying is the simulation theory has some big backing, but you have to understand the spiritual stuff, and more importantly, you have to believe in it. And whether you do or you don't, this is the same as the power of visualization. So just cherry pick what you want to believe. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Make sure it works for you and make sure that is your truth, and that's all that's really important.
Saying it has been smelling like rotten eggs or the smell of sulfur, dead fish, all kinds of things, and nobody is bringing awareness to them.
Los Angeles stinks right now, okay? And I mean that very literally. It stinks. And nobody's talking about this. On the west side and Santa Monica, it smells like dead fish all over, and I keep searching.
Now I believe this is also tied to why Los Angeles has been foggy as of late, because the smell came around the same time the fog came. Were you guys aware that a mud eruption took place in California just a few days ago, y'all? This is like the mud floods coming back, y'all. This is what has been smelling like sulfur. This is coming deep underground from the earth, y'all, like the mud floods. Y'all see this? So there has been mud explosions in Los Angeles and nobody's talking about it. Nobody really knows what's going on. This is happening in the hills of California. And this is why it's extremely foggy in Los Angeles, as well as why it smells like rotten eggs and dead fish and all that stuff. So the air in Los Angeles right now is mostly methane, amongst other things. But yeah, did y'all know this was going on? And what do y'all think about this, y'all? Because again, this is in Los Angeles. Let me know if that makes sense to y'all. And let's continue to get this shift. Share this video. Peace in.
This spherical flask of fluid, and you look into the center, and in the center see a glowing blue-purple light, which could be seen with the unaided eye. It looked like a star in the heavens.
Seth Putterman called it the star in a jar, a tiny spot of bright light contained in a flask of liquid. This star in a jar is made when a sound wave is passed through a small bubble inside a flask of liquid. And this sound wave makes the bubble do something remarkable. First it expands, then it collapses. And this collapse happens so violently that vapor molecules trapped inside the bubble slam together and heat up so much that the bubble gives off an incredible burst of heat and light, several thousand times a second, giving the appearance of a star. What made the phenomenon so exciting was the temperature of this star in a jar. On its surface alone, the light burns at tens of thousands of degrees. And Seth Putterman now contemplated a tantalizing possibility. Could the core of the collapsing bubble be even hotter? Hot enough for fusion?
One of the mysteries of sonoluminescence is to determine exactly how hot the interior of the bubble gets. In the sun, the interior can be millions of degrees, hot enough to cause fusion. And the thought crossed my mind that perhaps inside the interior of the bubble might also get hot enough to cause fusion.
If so, This would be something truly amazing. By simply bombarding tiny bubbles with sound waves, temperatures of over 10 million degrees would be created. And nuclear fusion, the section that powers the sun, would be happening almost effortlessly.
Hey, y'all pay attention.
The Area 51 in Las Vegas. Do you know that, right?
Sure, I know what it is.
So, anyway, but it's a big tourist thing. So, I interviewed jet pilots that say they saw something. If you saw them, you'd love to have them as
I've
your
had a
son.
couple in here. Commander David Fravor.
Yeah.
I had him in, who had that sighting in 2004. Very compelling with video evidence, radar evidence. Brian Graves.
I don't believe his name, but I interviewed jet pilots that were solid people. Perfect. I mean, great pilots, great everything. And they said, we saw things, sir, that were very strange. Like a round ball, but it wasn't a comet or a meteor. It was something. And it was going 4 times faster than an F-22, which is a very fast plane, you know. And it was round, which is, in theory, a great shape.
So when you were talking to these people, was this something that you were compelled to have conversations about? Was this your personal interest?
A little bit. It's not a great interest for me, but it's a little interest. I get that question as much as almost any question. Do you think that we have aliens coming, flying around or whatever?
What do you think?
There's no reason not to. I mean, there's no reason not to think that Mars and all these planets don't have life, because
Mars, we've had probes there and rovers, and I don't think there's any life there.
Well, maybe it's life that we don't know, but
maybe there was life there at one point in time. This is a speculation about Mars, that Mars had an atmosphere at one point in time, a long time ago, that could support life. It also had large bodies of water, but we've had no evidence of even bacterial life that exists on Mars. But the universe is pretty vast.
It's not been a big thing for me. I mean, when I looked at what China did to this, they would have never done it with me, where they put the balloon up. And a lot of people thought for a little while that was one of these things. So,
well, that's a lot of the speculation, too, that some of these drones that hover over battleships, that these are Chinese drones, and that they're not UFOs.
They could be also.
There's some super sophisticated.
But I did interview, let's say, 3 or 4 guys that, and without tremendous interest, if you had them, they said, you'd love to have them as your children. Solid, beautiful people. They said, sir, there's something there.
There's something there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few of them.
They're not conspiracy guys.
Well, I mean, just the Commander David Fravor thing in 2004 off the coast of San Diego, they clocked that thing going from 50,000 feet above sea level to 50 in a second.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is.
That's tough to beat.
Yeah, they saw something in the water. It was hovering over that something that was making a disturbance in the water. They got video evidence of this thing. 2 different fighter jets with pilots in them saw it. There's, what is that? And it doesn't have a heat signature. They don't know what their propulsion system was. But
when you fly in some of these jets, these pilots have to be in great shape.
Oh, yeah. I flew with the Blue Angels once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to fly. I guess it's an F-18.
And those are older machines.
And they're crazy.
When you fly in some of these things,
oh my God,
amazing. Yeah, but
I can imagine.
You got to be special.
But these things that these people are encountering are far superior to what we know of.
Yeah.
Is it possible that there's some military or government program that you weren't, that they didn't tell you about?
I think I had a great relationship with the military, basically. But, I didn't like certain people. I would have gotten them out if I thought, the election was different, I would have fired, all of them quickly. Most of them I did fire.
Breaking news, a bridge in Sioux City in Iowa, South Dakota, as well as Nebraska just collapsed due to major flooding in the area. And this ain't the first bridge in the area that needs repair. Now this is a train bridge, and as you see, it's totally snapped in half and completely submerged in the water. Now luckily there was no train that was crossing at this time. Now this was in Spencer, Iowa yesterday. As you see the major flooding in the area, as you see people are in the area trying to check on anybody who could be trapped in their home. Now some of these areas had 15 inches of rain that dumped onto them in 2 days. But now let me go back to this. As you see, the red areas are bridges that are in need of repair and been there since 2022. And you'll sit there and go, wow, it's in the orange, but let me just show you the rest of the United States of how many bridge problems we have. Take care. God bless.
A massive spacecraft in Greenland discovered shortly after World War II that they believe could be responsible for the last ice age. I've searched high and low, haven't been able to figure out who this gentleman actually is. Whether he's a professor, just a speaker on UFOs, or what. If you know, please inform me. I'd like to do a little more digging on this subject. But he has some mind-blowing information. He basically claims that there's a massive UFO in Greenland that has just been exposed due to the melting ice caps. He then goes on to explain that this UFO was discovered in 1947 when a B-52 bomber actually goes down due to its resonant field. It apparently shuts all electronics down as you enter this 200-mile radius.
How many of you know about the object in Greenland? A couple of you, okay. Well, for those of you that don't know, there is a spacecraft that has melted out of the ice in Greenland. As you know, the North Pole has melted completely. You can go from London to Moscow or to Russia by going over the North Pole now. All the ice cap is gone. The last place that has ice on it was Greenland. Greenland had a 18,000-foot ice cap on it. Well, the spacecraft that is anchored in the center of Greenland created the last ice age 50,000 years ago. It's a weather machine. It's 55 miles wide, 300 miles long, and 2 miles high. The people that lived in it were called the Mois. If you draw a straight line from the spacecraft to the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C., through the Yucatan Peninsula Great Pyramid at Mitsubishi, it ends up on Easter Island where the Mois have been dug out of this dirt. The heads on Easter Island, well, 2 years ago they finally went ahead and they excavated, and they're all 65 to 85 foot people, full body carvings. And these were the people that lived in the spacecraft that was uncovered that's melting out of the ice in Greenland. So when you think we've been alone, these people have been up there for 50,000 years. The spacecraft is still active after 50,000 years. It has a 200-mile dampening field where no electrons can flow into it. In 1947, a B-52 bomber flew into that pattern, into the dampening field when trying to fly between Maine and London. As a result of that, they lost power and crashed in Greenland. As they sent in rescue B-52 bombers to rescue them, they hit that same dampening field, but they veered off. They just ricocheted off of it. And by testing, trying to get to these guys, they were able to ring a circumference and find out that there was an object 200 miles to the center of this field. On the southwest corner of Greenland, there is a small community. It's the only community on the island of Greenland. That community is a military post, CIA, that uses a compressed air generator to operate diesel engines to run a Caterpillar to run back and forth to 200 miles from the base to the object in Greenland. A lot of our technology comes from the reverse engineering out of the spacecraft. It is still functional and is still in operation. So it's pretty important what this thing is. All the nations worldwide are up there with the United Nations, and they're all acting, working together. Point is that we're not alone out here in this universe.
The only thing that doesn't make sense about his claim is B-52 bombers had their maiden flight in 1952. At the time of the accident in 1947, there were no B-52 bombers, but that would be an easy mistake to make. I did a little digging, and there was a wreck in 1947 of a B-29 bomber called the Keybird. With growing tensions in U.S.-Soviet relations at the time, the B-29 surveillance plane explored the possibility of attacking Soviet targets via Great Circle routes over the North Pole as a part of Project Nanook. Long story short, during one of its missions in 1947, it was at 24,000 feet when it ran into a blizzard and lost control of all steering. They ended up landing in northwest Greenland on a frozen lake. But nobody really knew why they lost steering control. They'd send search and rescue teams, and it took 3 days to get to the men. All the crew survived. So essentially, anything that got within a 200-mile radius of this UFO, which was 2 miles tall, 55 miles wide, and 300 miles long. What's more baffling is they claim that the UFO is still active today, and that it possibly was responsible for the world's ice age. They believe the craft to be able to control weather anomalies, and that it's over 50,000 years old. What's more is his claim is that they came to the conclusion that the craft was operated by a group of extraterrestrials known as the Mois. They were a sort of tribal extraterrestrial. He also goes on to claim that if you draw a straight line from the craft to the Washington Monument through the Yucatan Peninsula, where there are pyramids, to Easter Island, it's actually a perfect straight line. And that he believes that the statues at Easter Island, which, if you didn't know, they had dug up and found out that they're 65 to 80 feet tall statues, and that these statues actually represent the Moise people. A pretty mind-blowing claim. A craft that is of that size can essentially control weather and is still active 50,000 years later. And after doing some more research, it's in about the same area as the base that we have there now. It's now known as Pituffik Space Base. It's America's northernmost Space Force base used today. The only place on Earth where 4 active glaciers join together. The base is home to a substantial portion of a global network of missile warning sensors of Space Delta IV and space surveillance and space control sensors of Space Delta II, providing space awareness and advanced missile detection capabilities to North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, the United States Space Force, and joint partners. He then goes on to say that since we discovered it in the 40s and 50s, we have been reverse engineering this craft, and a lot of our technology today actually comes from it. And I gotta say, they've done well at keeping this one under wraps, because this is the first I've heard anything like this. And I've been researching, making content about this for over 2 or 3 years now. Many also believe this is the reason that they made Camp Century, or Project Iceworm, a top-secret United States Army program during the Cold War, which aimed to build a network of mobile nuclear missile launch sites under the Greenland ice sheet. The end goal was to install a vast network of nuclear missile launch sites that could survive a first strike. This was according to documents declassified in '96, so they really never actually reached an agreement with the Danish government. This, coupled with the fact that they had a hard time actually keeping the tunnels from melting and caving in throughout the project. The official purpose of Camp Century, as explained by the United States Department of Defense to Danish officials in 1960, was to test various construction techniques under Arctic conditions, explore practical problems with a semi-mobile nuclear reactor, as well as supporting scientific experiments on the ice cap. A total of 21 trenches were cut and covered with arched roofs within the prefabricated buildings that were erected. With a total of 3,000 meters or 1.9 miles, these tunnels also contained a hospital, a shop, a theater, and a church. The total number of inhabitants was approximately 200. From 1960 until 63, the electric supply was provided by the world's first mobile nuclear reactor, designated and designed by Alco for the U.S. Army. They also claim one of the reasons they shut it down was the actual heat produced by people living underground in the ice. At least that's what they claim. But maybe, just maybe, they actually dug the tunnel to the said craft. Let me know what you think in the comments. Pretty mind-blowing stuff, and this is just scratching the surface. It's very fascinating, to say the least. Do me a solid, y'all. Let me know in the comments what you've heard about this, or if you have any new information. Tag me in the link. Also, let me know what y'all think about my new production style. I'm adding a little flavor or a little flair to my videos. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was worth the wait. And continue watching. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe. It really helps my overall at the end of the day. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you had a good Valentine's Day as well. Stay in the love, stay in the light, be kind to others. I am out.